At the restaurant, my daughter-in-law shouted, "Call the manager, this old woman shouldn't be here." My son jumped in and said, "Get her out right now." I stayed calm and said nothing. The manager looked at me, smiled, and asked, "Ma'am, how would you like us to deal with these guests?" Their faces went pale. You see, they didn't know I owned the place, bought it 3 years ago with money I'd been setting aside since my husband died. The restaurant had been failing, and I got it for a song. Turned it around with good management and better food. Never told the family about it. Why would I? They only called when they needed something. My son David stood there with his mouth hanging open like a fish gasping for air. His bride, Jennifer, gripped his arm so tight her knuckles went white. The wedding guests had gone silent, 200 people watching this little drama unfold. "I think," I said slowly, "we should let them stay. It's their wedding day after all." The manager nodded and walked away. I could see the calculation happening behind Jennifer's eyes. She was smart, I'd give her that. Smart enough to know she'd just made a terrible mistake. "Mom," David said weakly, "you own this place?" 15 years I worked as a nurse, I said. Double shifts, holidays, weekends, saved every penny I could. When your father died, the insurance money gave me enough to invest. This was my investment. Jennifer's face had gone from pale to red. "You never told us. You never asked what I did with my time." I picked up my water glass and took a sip. "You only asked what I could do for you." The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't happen all at once. It's like rust on metal, slow and steady until one day the whole structure collapses. My son had been a good boy once, brought me flowers on Mother's Day, called twice a week, remembered my birthday. Then he met Jennifer at his accounting firm. She was beautiful, I won't deny that. Tall and blonde with perfect teeth and a laugh that sounded like music. But there was something cold behind those blue eyes, something calculating. I saw it the first time they came to dinner at my apartment. "This is a nice place," Jennifer had said, walking around my living room like she was appraising it. "How many square feet?" "About 1,200, I said. "It's enough for me." "Must be worth a fortune now. Real estate in this neighborhood has gone crazy." She ran her finger along my bookshelf. "You should think about selling. Move somewhere smaller. David and I could use a place like this when we get married." That was 2 years ago. Since then, the requests had gotten bolder. Money for the wedding, money for furniture, money for a honeymoon in Bali. I'd said yes to all of it, like a fool. Thought I was helping my son build a life. The wedding reception continued, but the mood had shifted. People whispered and glanced in my direction. I sat at a table in the corner, watching David and Jennifer dance their first dance as husband and wife. They moved stiffly, like puppets with tangled strings. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mrs. Patterson?" A man's voice, smooth and professional. "Speaking. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm a private investigator. I have information about your son and his new wife that I think you should hear." I stepped outside into the cool evening air. The restaurant sat on a busy street corner, traffic flowing past in rivers of light. "Go ahead." I was hired by Jennifer's ex-boyfriend 6 months ago. He suspected she was running a scam. Turned out he was right. She's done this before. 3 times, actually. Finds men with wealthy parents, marries them, convinces them to get access to family money, then cleans them out and disappears. My hand tightened on the phone. "You have proof? Bank statements, emails, recordings, everything. I can send you the file if you want. But there's something else. Your son has been moving money out of your accounts. Small amounts at first, but it's gotten bigger. Last week, he transferred $50,000. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "How do you know about my accounts?" "Because I'm good at my job, Mrs. Patterson. And because someone needs to stop these two before they destroy you completely." "Who hired you to tell me this?" Jennifer's ex. He wants revenge, but he's smart enough to know the best revenge is preventing her from succeeding again. He's willing to testify if you decide to take legal action. I ended the call and stood there in the darkness, breathing slowly. Inside the restaurant, I could hear music and laughter. My son was in there celebrating the best day of his life, and he'd been stealing from me. When I went back inside, I found David and Jennifer at the bar. They turned when they saw me approach, and I saw something new in their faces. Fear. "We need to talk," I said quietly. "Not here. Tomorrow. My apartment. 10 in the morning." "Mom, 10 in the morning, David. Don't be late." I left the reception early, drove home through empty streets, my mind racing. The apartment felt too quiet when I walked in. Pictures of David covered the walls. His baby photos, school pictures, graduation. I'd been so proud of him. I made tea and sat at my kitchen table opening my laptop. My bank accounts loaded slowly. There it was, $50,000 transferred out last Tuesday. Before that, $20,000 in March, $15,000 in January. Going back almost a year, I found transfers I'd never authorized. Over $200,000 gone. I should have noticed. Should have been paying attention. But I'd trusted him. That was my mistake. The next morning, I woke at dawn. Made coffee and toast, though I couldn't eat. At 9:30, I called Thomas Reed. "I want everything," I said. "Every piece of evidence you have. I'll email it within the hour. Mrs. Patterson, I know this is hard. Hard doesn't begin to cover it, but thank you for the warning." At exactly 10 o'clock, my doorbell rang. David stood there alone, looking exhausted. "Jennifer's not coming. She's not feeling well." "How convenient." I stepped aside to let him in. "Coffee?" "No. Mom, about last night." "Sit down, David." He sat on my couch, the same couch where he'd done homework as a teenager, where we'd watched movies together, where I'd held him when his father died. "I know about the money," I said. His face went white. "What money?" "Don't insult me. The transfers from my accounts. $237,000 over the past year. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" "Mom, I can explain." "No, you can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. You stole from me." He put his head in his hands. Jennifer needed it. She had debts. Her ex was threatening her. She said if we didn't pay him off, he'd ruin everything. "So you stole from your mother." "I was going to pay you back, I swear. Once we got settled, once I got my promotion." "Stop lying." I pulled up the email from Thomas Reed on my phone and showed him. "Jennifer has done this before. 3 times. You're not special, David. You're just another mark." He read through the files, his face growing paler with each page. "No, that's not possible. She loves me. She loves your access to my money. Wake up." He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the coffee table. "You're wrong. You've always hated her, right from the start. You couldn't stand that I found someone who makes me happy. Someone who makes you steal from your own mother." "I'm leaving." He headed for the door, then turned back. "And I want what's mine. Dad's life insurance money. Half of everything. If you're going to accuse me of stealing, then give me what I'm legally entitled to. Your father's insurance paid for your college. Every penny. There's nothing left. Then the apartment. Sign it over to me. Get out. I'm your son. A son doesn't steal. A son doesn't betray trust. Get out of my home, David. Don't come back until you're ready to tell me the truth." He slammed the door so hard the pictures rattled on the walls. I sat down slowly, my legs shaking. This was my son, my only child, and I'd just thrown him out. My phone rang. Unknown number again. "Mrs. Patterson, it's Thomas Reed. I thought you should know. Jennifer just filed a police report claiming you threatened her at the wedding. She's trying to get a restraining order against you. On what grounds? She claims you grabbed her arm and told her you'd make her regret marrying your son. 3 guests have given statements supporting her version. That never happened. I know, but she's smart. She's building a case to make you look unstable. If she can get you declared mentally incompetent, David gets control of your assets. It's the same thing she did to her second husband's mother. What happened to that woman? Reed was quiet for a moment. She's in a nursing home now, Alzheimer's, but Jennifer got her declared incompetent 3 years before the diagnosis. By the time the family realized what was happening, all the money was gone. I closed my eyes. What do I do? Fight back, but carefully. Jennifer's good at playing the victim. One wrong move and you'll look like the villain. I spent the next week gathering evidence. Bank statements, emails, phone records. Thomas Reed sent me everything he had on Jennifer's past. The picture that emerged was ugly. Her real name was Jessica Parker. She'd changed it legally 4 years ago after her second divorce. The first husband had been a dentist in Ohio. She'd married him at 23, convinced him to take out a massive loan to expand his practice, then divorced him and took half of everything, including the loan debt. He'd declared bankruptcy 6 months later. The second husband was a lawyer in Chicago. Older, wealthy, with an aging mother who had dementia. Jennifer had wormed her way into the family, gotten power of attorney over the mother, and drained her accounts. By the time the husband's sister noticed, $800,000 was gone. They'd tried to prosecute, but Jennifer had covered her tracks well. Every transaction looked legitimate on paper. The third was a software developer in Seattle. That relationship had ended when his best friend caught Jennifer stealing credit card numbers from his wallet. No charges were filed, but she'd left town quickly. And now David. My David, who'd been smart enough to get a master's degree, but dumb enough to fall for a con artist. I hired a lawyer, Margaret Chen, a woman in her 60s with steel grey hair and a reputation for winning. We met in her office downtown, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "This is a strong case," Margaret said, reviewing my documents. "The unauthorized transfers alone are enough for criminal charges. Add in the investigator's evidence about her past, and we can bury her." "I don't want to bury her. I want my son back." "Mrs. Patterson, your son is an adult who made his own choices. He stole from you. That's a crime. He's not a criminal. He's being manipulated." Margaret leaned back in her chair. "You're going to have to choose. Your money or your son. Because right now, he's chosen her over you." I knew she was right, but knowing something and accepting it are different things. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. I showed up in my best dress, hair done, makeup perfect. Jennifer sat across the courtroom with David beside her, playing the role of frightened victim. She'd worn a high-necked blouse that covered her throat, making her look vulnerable and young. Her lawyer was a young man with slicked-back hair and an expensive suit. He presented their case first. According to Jennifer, I'd been hostile from the moment they met. I'd threatened her multiple times. At the wedding, I'd grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises and whispered that I'd destroy her marriage. 3 witnesses testified to seeing me grab her arm. They described me as angry, unstable, possibly drunk. By the time they were done, I sounded like a monster. Then Margaret stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence a series of bank statements showing unauthorized transfers from Mrs. Patterson's accounts, totaling over $200,000. These transfers were made by her son, David Patterson, at the request of his wife." The judge looked interested. Jennifer's lawyer jumped up. "Objection. This hearing is about threats and harassment, not financial disputes." "The financial disputes establish motive," Margaret said smoothly. "Mrs. Patterson's supposed hostility toward the defendant stems from the defendant's systematic theft of her assets. I also have evidence that the defendant, who legally changed her name from Jessica Parker 4 years ago, has a history of this exact behavior with previous partners. Objection. Overruled. I'll allow it. Margaret presented Thomas Reed's investigation. The judge read through it carefully, his expression growing darker. When he looked up, he stared at Jennifer for a long moment. Request for restraining order denied. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the District Attorney for investigation of potential fraud. Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Patterson, the younger Mrs. Patterson, and her husband from the courtroom. David looked stunned. Jennifer's mask slipped for just a second, and I saw pure rage in her eyes. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Someone had tipped them off. Jennifer tried to hide her face, but cameras caught everything. By evening, the story was all over the local news. Local woman accused of elder financial abuse. Jennifer's previous identities came out. Her past husbands were interviewed. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. I turned it off and sat in my apartment, feeling hollow. David called 3 days later from a number I didn't recognize. Mum, please, we need to talk. I'm listening. Not on the phone. Can I come over? No, neutral location, the coffee shop on Maple Street, tomorrow at 2. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back corner booth. He'd lost weight, his face gaunt and tired. I ordered tea and sat across from him. Jennifer's gone, he said without preamble. Left 2 days ago, took everything, jewelry, cash, my credit cards, maxed them all out before I could cancel them. I'm $50,000 in debt. I'm sorry. You were right about her, about all of it. I was so stupid. Not stupid. In love. There's a difference. I stole from you. His voice cracked. I took your money, your trust, everything. How can you even stand to look at me? Because you're my son. That doesn't change. He started crying, right there in the coffee shop. Big, ugly sobs that shook his shoulders. People stared, but I didn't care. I moved to sit beside him and pulled him close, the way I had when he was small and scared. I'm so sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. I know. The district attorney's office moved fast. They'd been looking for Jennifer, Jessica, for years, trying to connect her to a string of financial crimes across 3 states. My case gave them what they needed. They arrested her in Nevada, trying to board a plane to Mexico. She'd already started using a new name, Julia Peterson. In her luggage, they found multiple IDs, credit cards in different names, and a laptop with files detailing her next target, a widowed real estate developer in Phoenix. The trial took 6 months to prepare. During that time, David moved back into my apartment, not into his old room, that felt too much like going backward, but on the couch, temporary. He got a second job to pay off his credit card debt, started seeing a therapist. Slowly, painfully, he began to rebuild his life. We didn't talk much about Jennifer at first. The wound was too fresh. But gradually, as the trial date approached, he started asking questions. How did you know? He asked one night over dinner. From the beginning, you didn't trust her. Instinct, the way she looked at things instead of people, the questions she asked about money and assets. Your father used to say I had a nose for trouble. I should have listened to you. You were in love. Love makes us stupid sometimes. The trial was held in District Court, a big modern building with marble floors and high ceilings. I testified on the second day, walking the jury through every unauthorized transfer, every lie Jennifer had told. Her lawyer tried to paint me as a vindictive mother-in-law, but Margaret shut that down fast. Mrs. Patterson, Margaret said during her questioning, did you ever try to sabotage your son's relationship? No, I wanted him to be happy. Did you refuse to help with wedding expenses? I paid for half the wedding, $30,000. Did you threaten the defendant at any time? Never. Not once. Jennifer's ex-boyfriends testified. The dentist from Ohio, now recovered from bankruptcy. The lawyer from Chicago, whose mother had since died, penniless. The software developer from Seattle, who'd lost $20,000 to Jennifer's schemes. The pattern was clear. Jennifer was a predator who targeted vulnerable men and their families. On the 5th day, David testified. He walked to the stand slowly, not looking at Jennifer. She stared at him the whole time, her face unreadable. "Mr. Patterson," the prosecutor said, "how much money did you transfer from your mother's accounts at your wife's request?" $237,000 over 11 months. "Did you believe you had permission to make these transfers?" "No, I knew it was wrong. But Jennifer said her ex-boyfriend was threatening her. She said he'd hurt her if we didn't pay him off. I was scared for her." "Did you verify this threat?" "No, I trusted her. Do you trust her now?" David looked at Jennifer for the first time. "No, she used me. She used my mother. She's a liar and a thief." Jennifer's lawyer tried to cross-examine, but David held firm. He didn't make excuses, didn't try to minimize what he'd done, just told the truth, plain and simple. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found Jennifer guilty on all counts: wire fraud, elder abuse, theft, identity theft. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison. David and I left the courthouse together. Reporters shouted questions, but we kept walking. Got in my car and drove to the ocean, an hour away. Parked and walked down to the beach, where waves crashed against dark rocks. "It's over," David said. "Not quite. You still owe me $237,000. He looked stricken. "Mum, Relax. I'm joking. Sort of. You'll pay me back when you can. No interest, but no forgiveness either. You made this mess. You clean it up." "That's fair." We stood there watching the ocean, Father's ashes scattered somewhere out there in the deep. I wondered what he'd think of all this. Probably shake his head and laugh. He always said life was stranger than any story. "I need to ask you something," David said. "Why didn't you stop me earlier? You knew something was wrong. Why'd you wait so long?" "Because I hoped you'd figure it out yourself. Hoped you'd wake up and see what she was doing. I didn't want to be the mother who ruined your marriage." "You didn't ruin it. She did." "Maybe. But I could have saved you some pain if I'd acted sooner. Or maybe I needed to learn this lesson the hard way. Some things you can't teach. People have to experience them." We stayed until the sun started setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Then we drove home, through darkening streets, back to the apartment where we'd both have to figure out what came next. It had been a few weeks since Thomas's call, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing at the edge of something bigger. Jennifer's appeal hung in the air like an unresolved chord, a reminder that the past was never fully done with you, no matter how far you tried to distance yourself from it. I spent most of my days at the restaurant, watching Rita manage the staff with quiet authority. The place had become a second home, and the employees had become family. I could count on them to keep things running smoothly while I was away. Sometimes I'd still slip into the kitchen, testing a new recipe or just talking with the cooks. They were my roots, my steadying force after everything that had happened. David's life seemed to be moving forward, too. He had taken a leave from his old job at the law firm, using the time to study for a certification in counseling. It was a field he'd always been interested in, but hadn't pursued due to the demands of his career. It was an encouraging shift, one that made me feel hopeful for his future, even if it meant he was doing something entirely different from what I had envisioned for him. I didn't want to shape his life anymore. He was an adult now, and his decisions had to be his own. Sunday dinners were a routine I cherished, one that brought a semblance of normalcy back into our lives. David and Sarah seemed to have settled into a comfortable rhythm. She was a good match for him, I could tell. Her steady kindness balanced his vulnerability, and the way she interacted with him showed a deep respect and affection. She didn't try to fix him, but she didn't leave him to his own devices either. It was just what he needed. One evening, as I cleared the table after dinner, David pulled me aside. "Mum, I need to talk to you about something." "Sure, what's up?" I paused, wiping my hands on the dish towel, sensing his serious tone. "I've been thinking a lot about my future," he began, sitting down at the kitchen table. "And I know you probably have your own ideas about what I should do, but I wanted to tell you that I'm planning to make a change." I felt a pang of concern. "What kind of change?" He hesitated before speaking, his eyes searching for the right words. "I want to move back to Ohio. I've been offered a position with a mental health organization. It's a great opportunity, and I think I need a fresh start." I froze, the weight of his words pressing on my chest. Ohio was where Jennifer's mess had started. It was where we had tried to put everything behind us. The thought of him going back there, to that place, felt like reopening old wounds. "But David," I began carefully, "that's where everything happened. I don't know if that's the right place for you." "I know it's where all that went down, but it's also where I grew up. It's where I found my passion for helping people, for working with troubled youth. I can't keep running from the past. It's time to face it head on." His conviction was admirable, but the mother in me was scared. "Are you sure? You don't have to do this." He smiled softly. "I appreciate your concern, Mom, but this is my decision. I think it's the right one for me." I took a deep breath, looking at him with a mix of pride and fear. "I trust you, David. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself." "I will. I promise." That was all he needed to say. I didn't want to be the one who held him back, who made him feel guilty for wanting to build his life in his own way. And yet, a part of me wanted to keep him close, to hold on a little longer. As the weeks went by, the plan for his move to Ohio took shape. He'd found an apartment and started the paperwork for his new job. Sarah had promised to visit him on weekends when she could. The transition seemed natural for him, even if it left me feeling uncertain. One of those Sundays after dinner, as we were sitting on the porch with coffee, David said something that took me by surprise. "Mum, I think I'm ready to forgive Jennifer." I looked up from my mug, unsure if I'd heard him correctly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think I've carried around enough anger for long enough. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand why she did what she did, but I can't let it keep holding me back. It's been a part of me for too long. I want to move forward, not just for me, but for the people I love." I nodded slowly. "Forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook, David. It's about freeing yourself." He smiled faintly, his gaze thoughtful. "I think I'm finally starting to understand that." It was a bittersweet moment. I wasn't sure if Jennifer was capable of remorse, but I hoped, for David's sake, that she'd one day look back on the damage she had caused and feel the weight of it. Even if she didn't, he had begun to unburden himself, and in the end, that was all that mattered. As the months went on, things shifted again. The community college had invited me back for a series of talks, and I'd found myself more involved in outreach programs, helping to educate people about the different forms of elder financial abuse. I had become a resource in the community, and it was fulfilling in ways I hadn't anticipated. One afternoon, while I was preparing for another presentation, I received an unexpected call. It was from Thomas Reed. "I just wanted to update you," he said. "Jennifer's appeal was denied. The court didn't even take it seriously. She's serving her full sentence, no chance of parole." "Good," I said, feeling a strange mixture of relief and finality. "Yeah, I figured you'd feel that way. I'll let you know if anything else comes up, but it seems like her chapter is closing." I thought about that for a moment. It was over. She wouldn't have the chance to hurt anyone else. But it still didn't bring me peace. When I hung up, I found myself sitting in the quiet of the office, reflecting on the years that had passed. So much had happened. So much had changed. And yet, there was still the lingering question, had it all been worth it? The answer wasn't easy. Some wounds, no matter how much time passed, never fully healed. But maybe, just maybe, they were starting to scab over, and perhaps that was enough. David left for Ohio at the end of summer. I helped him pack, watching as he organized his things with a sense of purpose. It felt like the last act of a play, one where I had watched the protagonist evolve into someone I didn't entirely recognize, but was proud of nonetheless. He had come full circle, and now it was his time to step into the world on his own terms. As I stood in his doorway, watching him drive away, I felt a sense of bittersweet pride. He was going to be fine. I had no doubt. I walked back into the house, into the quiet that now filled the space. The future was unwritten, full of possibilities. I didn't know what came next, but I had learned one thing. Sometimes, the most important thing was simply letting go and allowing life to unfold in its own way, and that was enough for me. A year after the trial, I sold the restaurant, not because it wasn't profitable, it was, but because I was tired. Tired of the long hours, the constant decisions, the weight of responsibility. I sold it to Rita, the manager, for a fair price. She cried when I told her. "You're sure?" she asked. "I'm sure. You've been running this place better than I ever did. Make it yours." With the money from the sale, I did something I'd always wanted to do. I travelled, bought a ticket to Ireland, and spent 3 weeks driving through green hills and ancient ruins. Then, Italy, where I ate pasta and drank wine and didn't think about betrayal or revenge or any of it. David came with me for the second trip to Japan. We walked through temples and gardens, ate sushi at tiny restaurants, got lost in Tokyo's neon streets. One night, sitting in a bar that held exactly 7 people, he asked me if I regretted how things had turned out. With Jennifer? No. With me? For what I did. "David, you paid me back. Every penny, plus interest even though I said you didn't have to. You rebuilt your life. What's to regret? I hurt you. Yes, but pain heals, and sometimes it teaches us things we needed to learn." He ordered another beer. The bartender poured it carefully, creating a perfect layer of foam. "I'm thinking about proposing to Sarah." "That's wonderful. Are you sure? After everything?" "Sarah isn't Jennifer. You're not the same person you were then. If you love her, marry her. But David..." I waited until he looked at me. "Keep your own accounts. Don't mix everything together. Trust, but verify." That sounds cynical. It's realistic. Love doesn't mean giving someone complete access to everything you own. It means building something together while still maintaining your own identity. He thought about that. Dad would have said the same thing. Your father was a wise man. We stayed in Japan for 2 weeks. When we got back, David did propose. Sarah said yes. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at a garden centre, just close family and friends. I paid for nothing this time. They insisted on covering everything themselves. I was proud of that. The wedding was simple but perfect. Sarah wore a dress she'd found at a consignment shop. David wore his father's suit, altered to fit. They wrote their own vows, promising to support each other, challenge each other, and always tell the truth. I cried during the ceremony. Not sad tears, something else. Relief, maybe. Or hope. At the reception, a small gathering in the garden centre's greenhouse, Sarah's father made a toast. To my daughter and her husband. May they build a life filled with love, honesty, and really good pasta. Everyone laughed. David squeezed Sarah's hand. Later, when the party was winding down, David pulled me aside. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For fighting when I was too blind to fight for myself. For showing me what real strength looks like. You would have done the same for me." "I hope so. I really hope so." 2 years after the trial, I got a letter from Jennifer. It was forwarded through my lawyer, who'd opened it first to make sure it wasn't threatening. "Mrs. Patterson," it began, "you don't know me, but you destroyed my life." I almost threw it away, but something made me keep reading. Everything I did to survive. My childhood was hell. My father beat me. My mother watched and did nothing. I learned early that the only person you can rely on is yourself. The only security is money. When I met David, I saw a way out, a way to finally feel safe. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to understand that I'm not a monster. I'm just someone who was trying not to drown. I read the letter 3 times. Then I wrote back, "Jennifer, I understand survival. I understand fear. But survival doesn't excuse cruelty. You didn't just take money. You took trust. You took my relationship with my son and nearly destroyed it. You hurt people who never hurt you. That's not survival. That's predation. I hope you find peace someday. But you won't find it by blaming others for the consequences of your actions." I never heard from her again. Life moved forward. David and Sarah bought a house. Small, but theirs. I helped with the down payment, a gift this time, no strings attached. They filled it with second-hand furniture and plants and laughter. Sarah got pregnant. They called to tell me one Sunday morning, both of them on speakerphone, voices bubbling with excitement. "We're having a girl," David said. "We want to name her after Grandma. Eleanor." I sat down hard. My mother's name. "That's beautiful. Will you help us with the baby stuff? Sarah's mum is great, but she's kind of clueless about babies." "I raised you, didn't I?" "Exactly. You're a professional." Eleanor was born on a Tuesday in March, 8 pounds and perfect. I held her in the hospital, this tiny human with David's eyes and Sarah's nose, and felt something shift inside me. All the anger, all the hurt from the past few years, it loosened its grip. Didn't disappear, but became something I could carry more easily. "She's going to have a good life," I told David. "Better than any of us did." "I hope so. I know so, because she's got parents who learned from their mistakes. That's more than most people get." We took Eleanor home from the hospital 3 days later. Sarah's parents came over with food. My Sunday dinner tradition expanded to include them, the house full of noise and baby sounds, and the smell of cooking. This was what family was supposed to be. Not perfect, but real. Built on honesty instead of secrets. 5 years after the trial, I got another call from Thomas Reed. "Mrs. Patterson, I thought you'd want to know. Jennifer was released on parole last month." My hand tightened on the phone. "Where is she?" "California. She has to stay there as a condition of parole. She's working at a call center, living in a halfway house. But I wanted to give you a heads up." "Thank you." "She's required to stay away from you and David. If she violates that, she goes right back to prison. But people like her, sometimes they can't help themselves." I told David that night. He was putting Eleanor to bed, reading her a story about a hungry caterpillar. When he came out, I handed him a beer, and we sat on his back porch. "Jennifer's out." He took a long drink. "Okay." "You're not worried?" "What's to worry about? She can't contact us. And even if she could, what's she going to do? I'm not the same person I was. I wouldn't fall for her games again." "You sound very sure." "I am, because I know what I have now. Sarah, Eleanor, you, a real family. Jennifer offered me fantasy. This is reality, and reality is better." I wanted to believe him. Mostly I did. 6 months passed without incident, then a year. Eleanor started kindergarten. David got promoted. Sarah published a book of poetry. Life was good. Then one day I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, "Amends." I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Mrs. Patterson, this is Jessica Parker. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I've been working with a therapist in prison and after. I've been diagnosed with some things that explain, but don't excuse, my behavior. I'm trying to be better. I know I can never undo what I did. But I'm trying to live a different kind of life now. I have a job. I'm taking classes. I'm paying restitution to everyone I hurt. It'll take me the rest of my life, but I'm doing it. I don't expect you to care. But I needed to say it anyway. I'm sorry. I showed the email to Margaret, my lawyer. She read it twice. Could be sincere, could be another manipulation. Hard to say. What should I do? Nothing. Don't respond. If she's sincere, she'll understand. If she's not, any response just gives her an opening. I took her advice, deleted the email and tried not to think about it. But I did think about it. Late at night, when the apartment was quiet, I'd wonder if people could really change. If Jennifer, Jessica, could become someone different, someone better. I wanted to believe in redemption, but belief is different from trust, and trust was something I'd learned to ration carefully. Eleanor turned 7. We threw her a birthday party at the park, 20 kids running wild, Sarah chasing them with cake and lemonade. I sat on a bench with David, watching. She's happy, I said. Yeah, she is. You did that, you and Sarah. We had help. He squeezed my shoulder. Couldn't have done it without you. I didn't do anything special. You did everything that mattered. You showed me what real love looks like. Not the fantasy version that Jennifer sold me. The hard, unglamorous, show-up-every-day version. That's what I'm trying to give Eleanor. One of the kids fell and started crying. Sarah was there in seconds, scooping him up, checking for scrapes. The kid's mother appeared, apologizing, but Sarah just laughed and said, "Kids fall. It's what they do." She's good at this, I said. She really is. I got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You chose well this time. Because I knew what to look for and what to avoid. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the party. Eleanor saw us and came running over, chocolate frosting smeared on her face. "Grandma, come play tag." "I'm too old for tag, sweetheart." "No, you're not. Please." How do you say no to that? I got up, knees creaking, and let her drag me into the chaos. Ran slower than I needed to, let her tag me, fell down dramatically when caught. The kids thought it was hilarious. Later, driving home, I thought about that word. Grandma. 5 years ago, I wasn't sure I'd ever hear it. The thing with Jennifer had nearly destroyed my relationship with David permanently. But we'd fought through it, rebuilt something stronger than what came before. That night, I pulled out old photo albums, pictures of David as a baby, a toddler, a teenager, his father and I on our wedding day, young and hopeful, the whole history of a family, preserved in fading photographs. I thought about writing my own story down, not for publication or anything grand, just so Eleanor would know someday, know that her grandmother had faced betrayal and pain and had survived it. That survival was possible, even when everything seemed broken. But maybe I'd wait. Let her be young a while longer. Let her believe the world was safe and good. She'd learn the hard truths soon enough. 10 years after the trial, I turned 75. David and Sarah threw me a surprise party, invited everyone I'd ever known. Former co-workers from the hospital, friends from the restaurant, people from my speaking engagements. The apartment was packed, voices and music filling every corner. Rita, who'd bought the restaurant, brought foodie she'd prepared herself. "From the old menu," she said. "Your favourites." Thomas Reed came, retired now and writing a book about financial crimes. "You're a chapter," he told me. "The one where the victim wins." "I'm not sure anyone won." You got your son back. That's winning in my book. Margaret was there too, still practicing law at 72. You ever think about what you'd say to Jennifer if you saw her again? She asked. Not really. That part of my life is over. Good. Closure is overrated anyway. Moving forward is what matters. Eleanor had made me a card, construction paper and glitter and careful 7-year-old handwriting. Dear Grandma, you are the best. Love, Eleanor. I put it on my refrigerator where I'd see it every day. Later, after everyone left and it was just David, Sarah, Eleanor and me cleaning up, Eleanor asked, Grandma, why did so many people come to your party? Because I've been around a long time, sweetheart. Made a lot of friends. Are you old? Very old. You don't look old. You look like a superhero. David laughed. She kind of is a superhero. What's my superpower? I asked. Survival, Sarah said quietly, and teaching others to survive. That night, alone again, I stood at my window looking out at the city, lights stretching to the horizon, millions of people living their lives. Some were probably being betrayed right now. Some were doing the betraying. Some were healing. Some were breaking. Life was messy and painful and complicated, but it was also beautiful, worth fighting for. My phone buzzed. Text from David. Thank you for being you. Thank you for not giving up. Love you, Mum. I texted back. Love you too. Always. The call came on a Wednesday morning. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Mrs. Patterson? A woman's voice, official. This is Officer Martinez with the California Department of Corrections. I'm calling about Jessica Parker. My stomach dropped. What about her? As her victim, you're entitled to notification. I'm sorry for calling out of the blue. I sat down slowly. How did it happen? Single vehicle accident on Highway 1. She lost control on a curve. The investigation is ongoing, but it appears to be just that, an accident. Was anyone else hurt? No, just her. After I hung up, I sat there for a long time, trying to figure out what I felt. Not happiness, I wasn't that cold. Not sadness exactly either. Something more complicated. The closing of a door I'd thought was already closed. I called David, told him. Wow, he said, I don't know what to feel. Me neither. Is it wrong that part of me is relieved? No, it's human. Should we tell Eleanor someday, about all of it? When she's older, when she can understand. What will we say? The truth. That people can hurt you, even people you love. That you have to protect yourself. But also that you can survive betrayal and come out stronger. That family is worth fighting for. That's a lot for a kid to process. She's got time. It wasn't news that needed spreading, just a fact like any other fact. A chapter that had finally, truly ended. A week later, a package arrived, from Jennifer's lawyer in California. Inside was a letter and a check for $1,700. Mrs. Patterson, Jessica Parker left instructions that if anything happened to her, her remaining assets should be divided among those she'd harmed. This represents your portion of her estate. She also left this note. The note was short, handwritten on plain paper. I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean much, but I mean it. You deserved better than what I did to you. Your son deserved better. I hope you found peace. Jessica. I stared at the check for a long time. $1,700, barely a fraction of what she'd taken, but something. I deposited it and donated the same amount to a charity that helped seniors avoid financial scams. Seemed fitting. Eleanor was 10 when she asked me about the wedding that wasn't in any of the photo albums. We were going through old pictures, sorting them for a school project, and she noticed the gap. Daddy got married before Mommy, she asked. David was there, helping. He looked at me, uncertain. Yes, I said, when he was younger, It didn't work out. Why not? Sometimes people aren't who they seem to be. His first wife lied to us, hurt our family, but we got through it. Is that why you're so careful about strangers? Smart kid. Partly, but also because I'm old and suspicious. She giggled. You're not that old. I'm ancient. Did you ever forgive her? The first wife? I thought about that. I don't know if I forgave her, but I stopped letting what she did control my life. That's almost the same thing. Mommy says forgiveness is important. Your mother is very wise, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let the past poison your future. Eleanor considered this seriously, the way only children can. That makes sense. Can I use that for my essay? Sure, sweetheart. Later, David asked me if I'd really forgiven Jennifer. I think so, or as close as I'm going to get. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't found out? If Thomas Reed hadn't called? Sometimes. Probably would have lost everything. Ended up in some nursing home with you signing papers to liquidate my assets. But that didn't happen. We caught it in time. Because you were paying attention. And because I trusted my instincts. That's the real lesson, David. Not that people will betray you, that's a given. But that you have to trust yourself enough to see it coming and strong enough to fight back. On my 80th birthday, Sarah organised a small dinner. Just the four of us at their house, lasagna and salad and chocolate cake. Eleanor was 15 now, tall and smart, already looking at colleges. Grandma, she said during dinner, I want to study law, maybe work in elder advocacy, like you talk about in your speeches. That's wonderful. I want to help people like you helped yourself. People who get taken advantage of because others think they're weak or confused. David smiled. She's been researching it for months, even wrote to some law schools. You didn't tell me, I said to Eleanor. I wanted to make sure I was serious first. But I am. I want to make a difference. I looked at this young woman who carried my mother's name and my son's eyes, and saw the future. Not just my future, but the continuation of something important. The idea that vulnerability isn't weakness, that fighting back is possible, that family, real family, is worth everything. Whatever you decide to do, I said, you'll be amazing at it, because you learned from the best mistakes. Yours and Dad's? Exactly. After dinner, Eleanor went upstairs to study. Sarah cleared dishes. David and I sat in the living room, the same room where years ago he'd told me his wife had left. I never thanked you properly, he said. For what? For seeing me as more than my worst mistake, for giving me a chance to be better. David, you're my son. That was never in question. It should have been. What I did was unforgivable. Nothing is unforgivable if you truly change. And you did change. Look at your life now. Look at Eleanor. You think I'd trade any of this just to have avoided some pain back then? I guess not. Pain teaches us things joy never could. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. You learned that love requires more than passion. It requires wisdom. Those are good lessons. We sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after surviving something together, David said. Sometimes I barely remember what she looked like. That's healthy. Is it? Feels like I should remember. Like forgetting is disrespectful somehow. Disrespectful to who? To the person who tried to destroy you. You don't owe her your memories, David. You owe yourself peace. I have peace. Finally. Really have it. Good. That's all I ever wanted for you. At 85, I finally wrote my story down. Not as a book, just as a document. 40 pages detailing everything that happened with Jennifer, the trial, the recovery. I gave copies to David and Eleanor. This is your legacy, I told Eleanor. Not the pain of it, but the survival, the proof that you can face betrayal and come through stronger. She read it in one sitting. came downstairs with tears in her eyes. "Grandma, I had no idea it was this bad." It was worse than I wrote. Some things you can't put into words. "How did you stay sane?" "I didn't always. There were days I wanted to give up, let them have everything, just to make the fighting stop. But then I'd think about your dad, about how he deserved better than to be Jennifer's puppet. That gave me strength." "The money didn't matter?" "Money always matters. But it wasn't about the money. It was about not letting someone take my dignity, about showing your father that standing up for yourself is always worth it." Eleanor hugged me tight. "You're the strongest person I know." "I'm just stubborn. There's a difference." But maybe there wasn't. Maybe strength and stubbornness were the same thing, just viewed from different angles. David's copy of the story went on his bookshelf, next to photos of Eleanor and Sarah. "This should be published," he said. "Other people need to hear it." "It's not for other people. It's for family. Family is bigger than you think. Every person who's been betrayed, who's fighting to survive, their family too." Maybe he was right, but I was too old to care about publication and publicity. I'd told my story. That was enough. Eleanor got into law school. Full scholarship to a good program on the East Coast. The day she left, I cried for the first time in years. Not sad tears, proud tears, bittersweet tears. "I'll visit," she promised. "Every break, and we'll video chat." "I know, but I'll still miss you." "Miss you too, Grandma. Thank you for everything." "I didn't do anything. You showed me how to be strong, how to survive, how to fight. That's everything." She drove away in a loaded car, Sarah and David following to help her move in. I stood on the sidewalk waving until they disappeared around the corner. The apartment felt empty. I made tea and sat by the window, watching the city. This view had witnessed so much. Jennifer's betrayal, David's return, Eleanor's childhood. All of it played out against this backdrop of buildings and streets. My phone rang. Thomas Reed, calling from his retirement home in Arizona. "Saw the news about your granddaughter. Law school. You must be proud." Beyond words. She's going to do great things. The world needs people like her. Like you. "I'm not special, Thomas." "That's where you're wrong. Most people in your situation would have either given up or become bitter. You did neither. You fought and you healed. That's rare." After we hung up, I thought about that. Had I healed, really healed, or was I just better at hiding the scars? Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe healing wasn't about erasing the past, but about learning to carry it without letting it break you. I pulled out the photo albums again, found pictures of David at Eleanor's age. The resemblance was striking. Same serious expression, same determination in the eyes. He'd been such a good kid. Even during the Jennifer years, there'd been goodness in him. Confused, manipulated goodness, but still there. I was glad I'd remembered that. Glad I'd fought for him instead of just fighting against her. At 90, I moved into a retirement community. Not because I needed to. I was still sharp, still independent, but because I wanted to. The apartment had too many memories, too many ghosts. David helped me pack, carefully wrapping photos and books. "You sure about this, Mum?" "Very sure. It's time." "You could move in with us." "And cramp your style?" "No thanks. This place has activities, people my own age. It'll be good." The retirement community was nice. Small apartment, communal dining room, organized trips and classes. I signed up for watercolor painting and immediately regretted it. Turned out I had no talent for art, but I made friends. Martha, who'd been a judge. Robert, a retired professor. Linda, who'd run a successful bakery for 40 years. We played cards, complained about the food, gossiped about the staff. "You should write a book," Martha said one day. We were having coffee in the common room. "Your story with the daughter-in-law, people would eat that up." already wrote it down, for family. Selfish, the world needs your story. The world has plenty of stories about betrayal and revenge. Not from someone who actually did it right, who fought back and won without becoming a monster. That's the part people need. Maybe she had a point, but I was 90 years old, too tired to start a writing career. Eleanor visited every few months, taking breaks from her thriving law practice. She'd specialized in elder advocacy, just like she'd said, won several big cases against nursing homes and financial predators. "You inspired me," she told me during one visit. "I didn't do anything special." "Stop saying that. You did everything special. You showed me that being vulnerable doesn't mean being weak, that asking for help is strength, not weakness, that fighting for what's right matters even when it costs you. Those are good lessons. The best lessons, the ones I use every single day." We sat in my small apartment, drinking tea, watching birds at the feeder outside my window. This was happiness, simple, uncomplicated happiness. "How's your dad?" I asked. "Good. Still working, but talking about retirement. He and Mum want to travel." "They should. Life's short, even when it's long." Eleanor laughed. "That doesn't make sense." "Sure it does. 90 years sounds like forever, but it goes fast. Faster than you think. Any regrets?" I thought about that. Some. I wish I'd caught on to Jennifer faster. Saved David some pain, but mostly. No. I lived a good life. Raised a good son. Got to know an amazing granddaughter. Can't ask for more than that. What about the money she stole? Money comes and goes. Family. Real family, that's what matters. David retired at 65. He and Sarah bought an RV and started traveling, sending postcards from strange places. "Wish you were here," written in Sarah's neat handwriting. I wished I was there too. But my traveling days were over. Too old, too tired, content to live vicariously through their adventures. Eleanor got married. To a public defender named James who loved her completely and treated her right. The wedding was small, beautiful, everything Jennifer's wedding to David wasn't. Honest, real, full of joy instead of performance. I sat in the front row, watching Eleanor say her vows, and felt something complete itself. The circle closing. My granddaughter had learned from my mistakes and David's mistakes and had chosen well. At the reception, Eleanor gave a speech. "My grandmother taught me that love isn't enough. You also need trust, respect, and the courage to walk away when those things are missing. She taught me that family is something you build, not something you're stuck with. And she taught me that survival is its own kind of victory." People applauded. I cried. Again with the crying. James's parents came over to introduce themselves. "Your granddaughter is remarkable," his mother said. "She is. James says she got her strength from you. She got it from surviving, from watching what happens when you don't pay attention. I just provided the cautionary tale. You provided more than that. You provided an example. Maybe I had. Maybe that was enough." Late that night, back in my retirement community apartment, I looked at the photo from the wedding on my phone. Eleanor and James, radiant. David and Sarah, proud. Me in my best dress, ancient but still here. I'd survived Jennifer's betrayal, survived the pain of almost losing my son, survived long enough to see Eleanor grown and happy. That was victory enough for any lifetime. At 95, I started having health problems. Nothing dramatic, just the slow failing of a body that had worked for nearly a century. David wanted me to move in with them, but I refused. "I like my independence," I told him. "You're being stubborn." "I've earned the right." He couldn't argue with that. Eleanor visited more often now, bringing James and their new baby, a boy named Thomas, named after Thomas Reed, the investigator who'd saved us all those years ago. Reed had died 2 years earlier, but his legacy lived on. I held baby Thomas and thought about circles. Jennifer had tried to break our family. Instead, she'd taught us how to build a stronger one. Thomas would grow up knowing that story, would learn from it. "Tell him about his great-grandmother," I said to Eleanor. "I will, when he's old enough. Tell him I was stubborn and difficult and didn't suffer fools. I'll tell him you were strong and brave and loved fiercely." "Same thing, really." Eleanor laughed, that wonderful sound that reminded me of Sarah and David and everyone who'd come before. The sound of family, genuine and true. Martha from the retirement community died that winter, then Robert in the spring. The common room felt emptier without them. I started spending more time in my apartment, reading, thinking, remembering. On quiet days, I'd think about Jennifer, wonder if she'd found any peace before the accident. Probably not. People like her rarely did. They were too busy running to ever stand still. But I'd found peace, hard-won, late-arriving peace. The kind that comes from knowing you fought for what mattered and didn't back down. David and Sarah came by every Sunday. The tradition had shifted, but survived. Now they brought food and stories from the road. Pictures of places I'd never see. I lived through them and was content. "Mum," David said one Sunday, "I've been thinking about the trial, about everything that happened. That was 25 years ago. Why think about it now? Because I want to make sure you know. What you did, fighting for me, for us, it saved my life. I'd be nothing without that, without you. You'd be fine. No, I'd be broken, probably alone. You gave me a second chance. Thank you." I patted his hand. "You're my son. That's what mothers do." Chapter 18. I turned 100 on a Tuesday. The retirement community made a big deal about it. Cake in the common room, interview with the local paper, proclamation from the mayor, all very silly and wonderful. Eleanor flew in with Thomas, now 5 years old and curious about everything. David and Sarah drove up from wherever they'd been. James took time off work. The whole family together. "Speech!" someone called during the party. I stood slowly, leaning on my cane. Looked at all these faces, family, friends, staff members who'd become family. 100 years, I said. That's a long time. Long enough to make plenty of mistakes and hopefully learn from them. I've been betrayed, hurt, angry. But I've also been loved, supported, blessed. The trick is figuring out which of those things to hold on to and which to let go. "What did you let go?" Thomas asked, young and innocent. "The anger, the bitterness, the need to prove something. What I held on to was family. Real family. People who show up not because they want something, but because they love you." I sat back down to applause, ate cake, accepted hugs, felt tired and happy and ready. That night, alone in my apartment, I wrote one last addendum to my story. The ending. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. That's okay. 100 years is enough for anyone. What I want you to know is this. Betrayal will happen. People will hurt you, but you are stronger than you think. You can survive anything if you remember what matters. Not money, not pride, not revenge. Family, truth, the courage to stand up for yourself. Those are the things worth fighting for. Those are the things that last. I fought for my family. Nearly lost it, but got it back. That's my legacy. Not the pain, not the struggle, but the survival. And the love that survived with it. Be strong. Be wise. Be unafraid to fight when fighting matters. And always, always trust your instincts. They'll tell you when something's wrong. Listen to them. I love you all. Thank you for being my family. I sealed the document, addressed it to Eleanor, and put it in the drawer with my other important papers. Then I looked out the window one last time at the city lights, stretched to the horizon. Somewhere out there, other people were being betrayed right now. Other families were breaking, but some were surviving, Some were fighting back. Some were winning. I'd been one of the ones who won. Not perfectly, not easily, but completely. That was enough. I went to bed that night and didn't wake up. Died peacefully in my sleep, the way everyone hopes to go. The nurse found me in the morning, still holding a photo of David, Sarah, Eleanor, James, and Thomas. My family. My victory. David found my final letter a week later, after the funeral. He read it alone in my empty apartment, tears streaming down his face. Then he called Eleanor. "She wants us to share her story," he said. "Not for fame or money, but so others know that survival is possible." "Then we'll share it," Eleanor said. They published my account 6 months later. Nothing fancy, just a small book with a simple title, The Broken Trust, One Woman's Fight for Her Family. It became required reading in Eleanor's elder advocacy workshops, used in law schools as a case study, cited in court cases about financial abuse. My story, the one I thought was just for family, reached thousands. Helped people recognize the warning signs, gave them courage to fight back. David kept my apartment for a year, unable to let it go. Finally sold it and donated the money to elder abuse prevention programs in my name. Eleanor kept my handwritten account in her office, showed it to clients who felt hopeless. "My grandmother survived," she'd tell them, "and so can you." Thomas grew up hearing stories about me, the stubborn old woman who refused to be a victim, who fought a con artist and won, who lost everything but her dignity and then took everything back. He carried my stubbornness and strength into his own life, became a lawyer like his mother, specialized in fraud cases. The legacy continued. And Jennifer? She became a footnote in my story. Not the villain, not the focus, just a lesson learned. A cautionary tale about trusting the wrong people and the price everyone pays. But I'd paid my price and collected my reward. A family that survived stronger than before. Love that lasted beyond betrayal. The knowledge that I'd fought when fighting mattered and won when winning counted. That was my revenge. Not destroying Jennifer. Life had done that for me. My revenge was surviving, thriving, building something real from the ashes of what she'd tried to burn down. I won. And in winning, I taught my family how to win too. That's the only revenge that matters. Living well, loving hard, refusing to let betrayal break you. I did that. For 100 years, I did that. And it was enough.